What if one of the most powerful tools for protecting your pancreas wasn't a prescription drug, but a seed that's been sitting in kitchens for thousands of years? And what if the real problem behind type 2 diabetes is not simply high blood sugar, but a pancreas that has become exhausted, inflamed, and overwhelmed by years of insulin overload? Because here's what's really going on inside your body. Type 2 diabetes does not begin with sugar. It begins with insulin resistance. Your cells stop responding properly to insulin, so your pancreas works harder and harder to keep blood sugar stable. At first, it compensates. It pumps out more insulin, but eventually those insulin-producing beta cells begin to fail. Think of your pancreas like a factory running 24 hours a day without rest. For years, it keeps increasing production. But eventually, the machinery overheats, the workers burn out, and the entire system becomes damaged by inflammation, oxidative stress, fatty liver dysfunction, excess processed carbohydrates, and chronic high insulin levels. Now here's the fascinating part. Emerging research on black seed, also known as Nigella sativa, suggests it may help support blood sugar control, reduce inflammation, improve insulin sensitivity, and even protect pancreatic beta cells from oxidative damage. Some studies are now exploring whether compounds inside black seed may help preserve or restore healthier pancreatic function over time. Now, to be clear, no seed magically cures diabetes overnight. Anyone promising that is oversimplifying a very complex metabolic disease. But what the science does show is this. When you reduce insulin resistance, lower inflammation, improve liver health, stabilize blood sugar, and nourish the pancreas consistently, the body has an incredible ability to recover metabolic function. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly how black seed may support the pancreas, why most people misunderstand diabetes completely, and the specific daily habits that create the conditions for diabetic reversal and metabolic healing. Let's start with the biggest misunderstanding in diabetes. Most people think diabetes happens because the pancreas suddenly stops working. But that's not usually true in the early stages. In fact, most people with prediabetes or early type 2 diabetes actually produce too much insulin. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your body is a parking lot. Insulin is the parking attendant helping glucose enter the cells. In the beginning, the parking lot has plenty of space. But after years of excessive processed food, constant snacking, sugary drinks, poor sleep, and chronic stress, the parking lot becomes full. Now insulin has to work harder and harder to force glucose into already overstuffed cells. That's insulin resistance. So the pancreas responds by producing even more insulin. For years, blood sugar may still appear normal because insulin is compensating behind the scenes, but eventually the pancreas becomes exhausted. Beta cells begin struggling to keep up with demand. Blood sugar rises. And now the diagnosis of type 2 diabetes appears. Here's why this matters. If the real problem is insulin overload and metabolic congestion, then simply forcing more insulin into the system does not address the root cause. You have to lower the demand on the pancreas. This is where black seed becomes interesting. Compounds inside black seed especially. Maquinone appear to have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects that may help protect pancreatic tissue from oxidative stress. Some studies have shown improvements in fasting blood sugar and HbA1c in people with type 2 diabetes using black seed supplementation. But remember, the seed is not the magic. The metabolic environment is the magic. If someone takes black seed while still consuming ultra-processed carbohydrates 6 times a day, sleeping 5 hours, and never lowering insulin levels, the pancreas never gets relief. So here's the practical protocol. Start by removing liquid sugar completely for 14 days. No soda, no juice, no sweetened coffee drinks. Second, stop constant grazing. Give your pancreas quiet periods between meals. Third, increase protein and healthy fats so blood sugar becomes more stable throughout the day. And fourth, if your doctor agrees it's appropriate for you, consider using black seed oil or ground black seed consistently alongside these lifestyle changes, not instead of them. Because healing happens when you reduce the workload on the pancreas. Now let's talk about something almost nobody discusses in mainstream diabetes care: inflammation inside the pancreas. Because high blood sugar is not just a glucose problem, it's also an inflammation problem. Here's what's really going on inside your body. When glucose and insulin stay elevated for years, your cells produce more oxidative stress. Think of oxidative stress like microscopic rust moving inside tissues. Over time, that rust damages proteins, blood vessels, nerves, and even the delicate beta cells inside the pancreas. And beta cells are extremely sensitive. They do not tolerate chronic inflammation well. This is one reason why many people slowly lose insulin-producing capacity over time. The pancreas is constantly exposed to high insulin demand, inflammatory food compounds, poor sleep, excess visceral fat, and unstable glucose spikes. Now this is where black seed has main scientific attention. The active compound thimaquinone appears to function as a powerful antioxidant in the body. Researchers have been studying its effects on inflammatory signaling pathways, oxidative stress markers, and glucose metabolism. Several reviews suggest black seed may help improve insulin sensitivity while reducing inflammatory damage associated with metabolic disease. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your pancreas is a small engine. If the engine overheats every single day, eventually the components wear down. But if you cool the engine, reduce friction, and stop overloading it, performance improves. That's the goal metabolically. You are trying to cool the inflammatory environment surrounding the pancreas. Now here's the mistake most people make. They focus only on glucose numbers while ignoring the inflammatory triggers driving the disease underneath. For example, highly processed seed oils, chronic sleep deprivation, smoking excess alcohol, ultra-processed carbohydrates, and visceral belly fat all increase inflammatory stress inside the body. And visceral fat is particularly dangerous because it behaves like an inflammatory organ. It releases cytokines and chemical messengers that worsen insulin resistance and increase pancreatic stress. This is why two people can weigh the same, but one develops diabetes and the other does not. It's not only about body weight, it's about metabolic inflammation. So what can you do starting today? First, build meals around protein, fiber, and natural fats instead of refined carbohydrates. Second, reduce foods that create rapid glucose spikes, especially white flour products, sugary snacks, and sweetened beverages. Third, prioritize omega-3 rich foods like sardines, salmon, eggs, and walnuts to help support anti-inflammatory pathways. Fourth, improve hydration and mineral intake. Magnesium deficiency is extremely common in people with insulin resistance and may worsen glucose control. And fifth, consider adding 1 teaspoon of black seed oil daily with food if tolerated and approved by your healthcare provider. Consistency matters more than intensity, because your pancreas does not heal from one healthy meal. It heals from repeatedly lowering inflammatory stress day after day. And here's something powerful to remember. Every stable blood sugar day is a recovery signal to your metabolism. Every walk after meals helps. Every good night of sleep helps. Every lower insulin day gives your pancreas a chance to breathe again. Now we need to talk about the organ that silently drives most type 2 diabetes, your liver. Because many people focus entirely on the pancreas while completely ignoring the metabolic traffic jam happening in the liver first. Here's what's really going on inside your body. When you consume excess sugar and refined carbohydrates for years, especially fructose, from sweetened drinks and processed foods, the liver begins converting that excess energy into fat. Over time, fat accumulates inside the liver itself. This is called fatty liver disease. And once the liver becomes overloaded with fat, insulin signaling begins to malfunction. The liver stops responding properly to insulin's instructions. Instead of regulating glucose normally, it starts dumping glucose into the bloodstream even when blood sugar is already elevated. Now the pancreas has to work even harder. More insulin, more stress, more inflammation, and eventually fat can even accumulate around the pancreas itself, interfering with beta cell function and worsening insulin resistance. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your liver is a warehouse. Its job is to store and ship energy properly. But after years of over-delivery sugar, snacks, processed food, constant eating, the warehouse becomes overcrowded. Boxes pile up everywhere. Workers can't move efficiently anymore. That's fatty liver. And until you clear the warehouse, blood sugar control remains extremely difficult. This is why some researchers now view type 2 diabetes as a disease of energy overflow rather than simple glucose imbalance. Now here's where black seed becomes interesting again. Research suggests black seed may help support liver health, reduce oxidative stress, and improve lipid metabolism, all of which matter because the liver and pancreas work as a metabolic team. But this is the key point. You cannot heal fatty liver while constantly spiking insulin. So what actually helps reverse this process? Number 1, meal spacing. One of the most powerful things you can do is stop eating every 2 to 3 hours. Constant eating keeps insulin elevated all day long. The liver never gets a chance to burn stored fat. Number 2, reduce fructose and liquid sugar aggressively. Sugary beverages are one of the fastest ways to worsen fatty liver because fructose is processed primarily by the liver. Number 3, prioritize walking after meals. Even a 10 to 15-minute walk after eating can significantly improve glucose disposal and reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes. Number 4, increase sleep quality. Poor sleep increases insulin resistance the very next day. One night of sleep deprivation can measurably worsen glucose control. And number 5, use fasting strategically. Intermittent fasting works because it lowers insulin long enough for the body to begin accessing stored energy. That's when liver fat starts decreasing and insulin sensitivity begins improving. If this is helpful so far, Consider subscribing because most people are never taught the true root cause physiology behind diabetes. They're taught to chase glucose numbers instead of fixing the metabolic overflow underneath. And once you understand the liver-pancreas connection, everything about diabetes starts making more sense. Now let's talk about one of the most powerful tools for helping the pancreas recover: fasting. And no, fasting is not about starving yourself. It's about creating where insulin finally drops low enough for the body to repair metabolic function. Because here's what most people never realize. Every time you eat, insulin rises. Now that's normal. Insulin is not the enemy. You need insulin to survive. The problem is modern eating patterns keep insulin elevated almost all the time. Breakfast at 7, snack at 10, lunch at 1, snack at 3, dinner at 7, dessert at 9. The pancreas never gets a break. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your pancreas is like a factory machine that's running 18 hours a day without maintenance. Eventually, parts begin overheating. Efficiency drops. Output becomes unstable. Fasting creates scheduled maintenance windows. It gives insulin levels time to fall. And when insulin falls, several important things begin happening metabolically. First, the body becomes more sensitive to insulin again. Second, stored liver fat begins getting burned for energy. Third, inflammation often decreases. And fourth, cells activate repair pathways linked to metabolic flexibility and healthier energy regulation. Research continues exploring how fasting may improve insulin sensitivity, reduce fasting glucose, and support weight loss in people with metabolic syndrome and type 2 diabetes when done appropriately. Now, this is important. Fasting is not magic by itself. If someone fasts all day and then consumes massive amounts of processed carbohydrates at night, the metabolic damage continues. Quality matters, but fasting changes the hormonal environment in a powerful way. And here's where black seed may fit into the picture. Some people find that black seed oil during eating windows helps support appetite control, blood sugar stability, and inflammatory balance while they transition into lower insulin lifestyles. Again, not because it's a miracle cure, but because it may support the metabolic environment the body needs to heal. So what does a practical beginner protocol look like? Start simple. Finish later by 7 p.m. Then wait until 8 or 9 a.m. the next morning before eating again. That creates a gentle 13 to 14-hour fasting window without extreme restriction. During that time, drink water, prioritize sleep, avoid late-night snacking. And when you do eat, focus on protein, healthy fats, vegetables, and mineral-rich whole foods. Now here's something fascinating. Many people notice that after several weeks of lower insulin exposure, cravings begin decreasing naturally. That's because stable insulin changes hunger signaling. The body becomes better at accessing stored fat instead of demanding constant sugar intake. And this is where real metabolic freedom starts happening. Not when you obsess over calories, but when your hormones begin working correctly again. Now let's talk about the hidden hormone that quietly sabotages blood sugar all day long: cortisol. Because you can eat perfectly, follow keto, use fasting correctly, even take supportive nutrients like black seed oil, and with high glucose if stress hormones remain chronically elevated. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Cortisol is your survival hormone. It's designed to help you handle emergencies. When your brain perceives stress, cortisol signals the liver to release more glucose into the bloodstream so you have quick energy to fight, run, or survive danger. That system worked beautifully thousands of years ago. But today, the threat is usually nonstop emails, poor sleep, financial stress, emotional overload, social media stimulation, chronic inflammation, and constant nervous system activation. So cortisol stays elevated for weeks, months, or even years. Now imagine what happens metabolically. The liver keeps releasing extra glucose. Insulin rises to handle it. Blood sugar becomes unstable. Cravings increase. Visceral belly fat accumulates, and the pancreas is forced to work harder again. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of cortisol like a fire alarm. It's supposed to activate temporarily during emergencies, but if the alarm never shuts off, the entire building becomes stressed and exhausted. That's what chronic stress does to your metabolism. In fact, research consistently shows sleep deprivation and chronic stress worsen insulin resistance and impair glucose regulation. Even a few nights of poor sleep can increase next-day blood sugar levels and appetite hormones. Now here's where many people accidentally make things worse. They try to out-discipline biology. They overload themselves with excessive fasting, intense cardio, undereating, caffeine overload, and chronic sleep deprivation, all while expecting blood sugar to improve. But an overstressed body often resists healing. Your nervous system matters, your recovery matters, your sleep matters. And this is one reason black seed has gained attention beyond glucose alone. Researchers are studying its potential antioxidant and stress-modulating effects because lowering Inflammation and oxidative burden may indirectly help metabolic resilience. So, what are the most practical tools here? Number 1. Protect sleep aggressively. Aim for consistent sleep and wake times. Deep sleep is when insulin sensitivity improves and hormonal repair happens. Number 2. Get morning sunlight exposure. Just 10 to 15 minutes of early daylight helps regulate circadian rhythms and cortisol timing. Number 3. Avoid eating late at night. Late night meals often worsen overnight. By glucose regulation because insulin sensitivity naturally declines in the evening. Number 4. Walk daily. Walking lowers stress hormones while improving glucose disposal at the same time. And number 5. Create moments where your nervous system feels safe again. Slow breathing, quiet mornings, prayer, nature, reduce screen stimulation before bed. These are not soft health strategies. They are metabolic interventions. Now let's bring all of this together into a practical daily protocol, because information only becomes powerful when you can actually apply it consistently. And this is where most people fail. Not because they lack motivation, but because they try to change everything overnight instead of improving the metabolic environment step by step. Remember, your pancreas did not become stressed in 1 week, and metabolic healing also happens gradually. Here's what the research and physiology both suggest. The body responds best to repeated signals of safety, stability, lower insulin exposure, reduced inflammation, and better energy regulation. That's the real goal, not perfection, consistency. So let me walk you through a realistic metabolic restoration framework. Start with the morning. When you wake up, avoid immediately flooding the body with sugar and processed carbohydrates. Instead, hydrate first. Get sunlight into your eyes within the first hour of waking. This helps regulate cortisol rhythms and improves circadian signaling tied to glucose control. If well, delay breakfast slightly and allow insulin to stay lower longer overnight. Then when you eat, prioritize protein first. Eggs, Greek yogurt, salmon, chicken, beef. Protein stabilizes blood sugar and improves satiety far better than sugary breakfast foods. Now during the day, focus on eliminating unnecessary glucose spikes. That means reducing ultra-processed carbohydrates, sweetened beverages, and constant snacking, because every spike forces the pancreas to respond. Again. And over time, stable glucose creates a much calmer metabolic environment. Next comes movement. You do not need extreme workouts to improve insulin sensitivity. In fact, some of the most powerful interventions are simple. Walking after meals. Resistance training 2 to 4 times per week. Improve in muscle mass. Why? Because muscle acts like a glucose sponge. The more healthy muscle tissue you maintain, the better your body can absorb glucose without excessive insulin demand. This is one. Reason strength training becomes increasingly important as we age. Now let's talk about black seed practically. Most studies investigating metabolic benefits have used black seed oil or powdered Nigella sativa consistently over time alongside lifestyle interventions, not in isolation. Some people use approximately 1 teaspoon of black seed oil daily with meals, while others use the seeds in food preparation. But consistency matters far more than megadoses. And remember, no supplement can outwork chronic insulin overload. The foundation still matters most. Sleep, meal timing, protein, movement, stress reduction, lower inflammation, lower liver fat, stable glucose. That is the real formula for improving insulin sensitivity and supporting pancreatic function naturally. Because the body is incredibly adaptive. When insulin finally drops, when inflammation decreases, when the liver becomes less congested, when sleep improves, the pancreas often functions better because the entire metabolic system is working better together. And that's the shift most people never hear about. You don't heal metabolism by attacking one symptom. You heal it by improving the environment the cells live in every single day. So let's recap what we covered today. Type 2 diabetes is not simply a blood sugar problem. It's a deeper metabolic problem driven by insulin resistance, inflammation, fatty liver, chronic stress, poor recovery, and pancreatic overload. And while no single seed magically cures diabetes, black seed Nigella sativa has gained scientific attention because its compounds may help support insulin sensitivity, reduce oxidative stress, and protect metabolic health when combined with the right lifestyle foundation. But the real healing comes from changing the environment inside the body, lowering insulin levels, reducing inflammatory foods, improving sleep, walking after meals, building muscle, spacing meals properly, supporting liver health, managing cortisol, giving the pancreas time to recover instead of forcing it to work nonstop. Because here's the encouraging truth. The body wants to heal. Metabolism is dynamic, and many people see dramatic improvements when they finally address the root causes instead of only chasing symptoms. So here's your challenge. Pick just one metabolic habit from this video and apply it consistently for the next 7 days. Maybe it's eliminating sugary drinks. Maybe it's walking after dinner. Maybe it's improving sleep. Maybe it's reducing snacking and allowing insulin to fall between meals. Start small, but start today. Because tiny daily metabolic wins become life-changing results over time. And if this video added value to your health journey, like the video and subscribe to join a growing community focused on improving energy, metabolism, longevity, and healthy aging naturally through science-backed strategies. Your body is listening to every habit you repeat, so give it signals that create healing.